thing I love about our worship time together is that it's not simply the separate moment, one day a week, that's completely removed from the other 7 or 6 days. It is born of the life that we have 24/7. It is born of the gratitude that we feel for God for pulling us through those days and for guiding our path. So worship is very real, and I'm going to invite Rhonda to come up and join me, and we're going to talk for a few minutes about how God informs her life 24/7. Rhonda, you've been with us for a while, but I know you've lived a pretty full life way before we ever met you. So what can you share with us about who you are?
Wow, that's a cosmic question. In my early years, I was confused a lot about who I am and what I am. I knew from the age of 4 that I was different. And I had a hard time accepting the difference. Born, for all intents and purposes, a boy. At least that's the way I looked when I was born. But I didn't feel like a boy as I grew up. I felt like a girl. Had a hard time with it. And as I realized what society expected of boys and girls, how they would live, how they would act and behave, it was something that I felt like I had to hide from everybody, including myself. It was hard. I feel very happy to be here, though. I grew up in a Seventh-day Adventist home, and it was kind of a split home because my father was an Adventist, my mother was not. And he took us to Sabbath school and church. And I experienced the love of God very early in my life. But I wasn't really a converted Christian. I was baptized at the age of 14, more because that's what kids my age were doing at about that time than anything else, I think. But I had opportunity to go to one of our Adventist academies at the age of 15. So 11th and 12th grades, I got a good Seventh-day Adventist Christian education, at least for 2 years. Before that, I had not had anything but public school. But that changed my life a good deal in many respects, but still didn't change who I am basically as far as my feelings of gender. After I graduated, I attended a 2-year public college, and I had some really hard times with my college professors who were deist or agnostic or atheist. It brought me to a point in my life where I was really searching my own feelings and beliefs. My faith was challenged. And I had to kneel down in prayer and ask God to do something for me. And a miracle happened that changed my life totally after that point in time. I can't go into the details because it would be much too long. But I'm absolutely 100% convinced that it was a miracle that made me never, ever question the existence of God. Not just of the existence of God, but the existence of a loving, caring God. And I've carried that with me until this day.
I think something I've always appreciated about you, when I say always, since we've met, is your assurance in God and His love for you. Was that something that you always felt, or did you ever question that?
I don't think I really questioned it until I got into college and I began to wonder, wow, all of my professors had PhD degrees, and I thought, wow, these people are very learned and smart individuals. Maybe I need to question my own beliefs a whole lot more. And because I did, honestly, my faith grew after the miracle, and I had no trouble going to the public library, checking out all kinds of books on philosophy and religion and science, geology, biology, and I've always had a lot of curiosity about nature. I guess that's the reason why after that I decided I wanted to become a teacher, and I did indeed become a teacher. I went to Columbia Union College in Tacoma Park, Maryland, and finished up my college education there with a major in biology, minors in chemistry, and secondary teaching and education. Altogether, I taught for 23 years in Seventh-day Adventist junior academies. You might wonder, since I had this marvelous miracle at the age of 17, where I was asking God for help, if that would change anything about, or if I would be given any instruction about who I am or what I am as a transgender person. And I was still hiding it from myself and everybody else up to this point. But no, there was nothing. There was no communication to me that I needed to do something to change. But I felt it anyway. I felt like, oh, this is so unusual. This is strange. This is not, quote unquote, normal for someone who's born male to grow up and feel female. But there was no communication to me telling me that I needed to change that, even though I felt like I needed to.
So somewhere along the line, you connected with this community, with that life behind you or a part of you. How did you get from there to meeting us?
As I mentioned, I had taught in Adventist junior academies for 23 years, and during the last few years, I was struggling harder and harder with who I am, and my transgender feelings and tendencies began to kind of come out and make themselves more obvious, and I was let go of my job as a teacher, I think, largely because of that, although it was never so stated. And I basically left the church after that for about 12, 15 years, mostly because after that I really transitioned. I started wearing women's clothes on a regular basis, wearing makeup and jewelry and so forth. And I just didn't feel like I could go back to church this way because I just felt like I would not be accepted. And I'm quite sure that that was a reasonable way to think. But I still had the longing to go back to church, and I just didn't know what to do, where to go. A few years ago, I heard about a film, Seventh Gay Adventists, that was making its rounds around the United States in different churches here and there. And I found out that it was coming to the Glendale Adventist Church, not far away. And I said, I have got to see that film. So I went to see that film, and it opened my eyes. There are accepting Adventist churches here and there. At the end of the film, some of the members of this church were down front talking to the producers and answering questions from the audience. I just had to go down there and talk to those people. So that's what I did. And I think more than anybody else, seemed so loving and so accepting and caring. Did not seem to mind that I was there, even though I looked pretty much like I look right now, were Cherry and Nathan Blue. And they just seemed to be such loving, caring people. I said to myself, I have got to go to that church, wherever they are. I found out that they were members of this church. And I think it was a week or two later, I came through the front door, walked down to the third pew from the front on that side, right behind the Salvadors. And they turned around and greeted me. And I just felt like, wow, this is where I need to be.
So you visited us for your first time, and here you still are, a couple years later. What is it that made you stay?
I think it's very obvious that this is a loving church. This is a church that does not care what color your skin is, your nationality, your religious beliefs, your political affiliation. All those things don't matter. What matters is you're a living, breathing human being, and we want you to be here. That's the way I felt when I came in. That's what I see still going on. God is love, and where love is, that's where God is, and it's where this church is. This is where I want to be.
And I'm very glad that you joined us. For those of you who don't know, Rhonda is one of our newest elders here. And for those of you who the word elder doesn't mean anything, it is a word that has been used to describe members of a congregation that have committed themselves to ministry alongside of all of us, and to really commit a lot of their time to paying attention to the needs of each of us in a really dedicated, focused, purposeful way. And it's not something random that happens, something where you feel called by God and people recognize that. And I think that Rhonda exemplifies a person who really shares her heart with people and has a desire to see others get to know God, which can be a challenging journey sometimes. So, Rhonda, I think that you're someone that is very focused on, you're very focused on why you're here. You live a life of purpose. that's born out of your own challenges. And so what can you share with us about what you think your purpose is, and how does that connect with life here in Hollywood?
Very early on, after I started attending here, I attended a Sabbath school class. It was downstairs. And I made it, in time, I made it clear to the teacher that if he ever needed to have someone substitute for him, if he'd like to get away, I'd be willing to teach the class. And not long after that, he indicated that he was going to be leaving and not coming back, and invited me to take the class basically on a permanent basis. And so he offered it to me, and I agreed. Over a course of several months later, the other Sabbath school class, which was just across the way, the young people's class, invited me to come and join with them to be one of the teachers there, and we've kind of stayed pretty much together after that. Three of us, Eugene, Kirsten, and myself, sharing the responsibility of teaching that underground Sabbath school classroom. And I really enjoy that. I enjoy having people search and try to find answers in the Bible and in other ways to test their own faith. I called my class originally Faith Builders. To me, in order to build your faith, it's important to tear down misconceptions of what faith is and what it's all about. And sometimes it's really hard to let go of something that just doesn't work and doesn't really make sense to yourself even. My purpose and direction in life is to try to help people find themselves, find their true selves and their destiny and their goals, and not just for themselves, but for God. One of the things that I do as a personal mission project is I started a Facebook transgender support group. That was back in the middle of July of 2012 when I started this group. We have about 400 members right now, and that's an outlet for me to help other people. I don't know the full direction that my life is going to take, but I enjoy serving in whatever way I can.
So I have a question for you. Do you find sometimes that you're not sure where you fit in God's world or His plan, or you're in the middle of some challenge that you're not sure how you're going to get through? Those very messy parts of our life, and I know that you gave us a good summary of what you've experienced, but on a day-to-day basis, it gets pretty ugly sometimes when we're trying to figure out who we are and how to belong. And I've enjoyed my personal conversations with Rhonda to understand how her faith has moved her through those messy spaces. And I think she would definitely welcome anyone who is struggling with figuring out their place in the world and God's purpose. She would be happy to talk with you. One-on-one is like that's your comfort zone, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So I'm so glad that you were brave enough to come up here and share with all of us together. Is there anything else before we finish this part of our service that you'd like to share with us?
The only thing else that I would say that I'd like to share is that it's so important to be honest with yourself. I think all of us wear masks. We make pretense about who we are at times because we're afraid We have fear that the world will not accept us as the people that we really are inside. I think it's so rewarding and relieving to come out of the closet. And each of us may have a closet to come from.
Thank you, Rhonda.